listeners, to another episode of the Roanoker Presents from Print podcast. I'm your host, Liz Long, and our May episode has a very special guest joining us as we celebrate our Best of Roanoke 2025 awards and look toward our region's future with a new leadership. Fresh off winning Best Thing to Happen in Roanoke in 2024 and Your Star City Hero of the Year in our Best of Roanoke Reader Poll, I'm thrilled to welcome Mr. Mayor Joe Cobb to the show. Thank you for coming back.
Hi, Liz. It's great to be back.
So glad to have you here in a new position, of course.
Yes.
And so Mayor Cobb, of course, has been a long, dedicated leader in our community. And now, as he steps into his new role, we're going to talk about what these awards mean to him, his vision for Roanoke in 2025, and what's ahead for our city. Mayor Cobb, we're so glad to welcome you back. You were first on our podcast in June 2023 as the Vice Mayor on City Council. So it's very exciting to sit back down with you as Mr. Mayor in your beautiful office.
Oh, thank you.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me in your office. Congratulations, of course, on winning the mayoral race. I mean, that was a sort of hectic time, but certainly rewarding for you.
It was, do we call it extended play?
Yes, let's do that.
I never imagined when I announced my candidacy in January of last year that it would be December 20th when we would know the outcome of the election.
Right.
But it was awesome to watch the process unfold, and I gained a much deeper appreciation and respect for our election registrar, all of our volunteers, our election officers who make sure that our elections run smoothly and they're done securely and every vote counts.
It was very interesting as a local citizen just to see that on such a local level, right? We're used to larger elections statewide or across the country, but to see democracy in action right in our backyard was something very interesting to me. My husband's a history teacher, so he was watching it with fervor, just trying to understand the process and what it means when things weren't or were moving forward, and how that affected you and, of course, the city as a whole.
Yeah, and it was important to me throughout that process that I just remind people of the steps in a process, that these things take time.
They don't happen overnight.
No, and you want to, they take time for a reason. They take time because you want to make sure that every step of the way is done appropriately and with every level of thoughtfulness that you can take.
Right, and it certainly was. I mean, it feels like everyone who was involved, had a great say in it. It felt even across all the board. I mean, it was really, it was truly an example of sort of democracy in action.
Yes.
I mean, it was so interesting, especially because it was a local campaign that was sort of on a national level because people were paying attention to these little small details that we had never understood or, realized before.
Yeah, it gave a real glimpse into the behind-the-scenes look at how to run an election.
Yes, well, we thank everyone who was part of that process, of course, and again, congratulations. And much like a mayoral recount election, we at the Best of Roanoke Awards are counting up votes by hand too. And so it was very exciting for us to see you come to the top of a platinum winner as Best Thing to Happen in 2024 was Joe Cobb wins mayor. And I thought, how exciting, because that meant that people were paying attention. And so, of course, it was wonderful to see that, at the top of the list. And so, congratulations on winning that Best Thing to Happen in 2024. But you also won Your Star City Hero of the Year, which is a category brought in maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but it really encompasses sort of a Roanoker who's making powerful strides for positive change. And so I can't think of anybody better for that.
Well, thank you. When I received word, I was deeply touched by that. I moved to Roanoke 24 years ago. I was a complete stranger, and to fall in love with this place and have it fall in love with me and be able to be part of the growth and health of this city. There's nothing quite like it.
Sure.
And so to receive this honor from the readers of Roanoker and citizens is one of the greatest honors of my life.
Wow, thank you very much for saying that. We at the Roanoke appreciate that. And of course, I'm not the only one counting them. For anybody questioning, there is a recount done by internal staff, so this was a true win. We didn't have to recount that too many times, but it was great to see. And again, that recognition from the community, I feel it's powerful just because they are, for better or worse, even if they don't always agree with where you're standing, they're paying attention to what you're doing because they care about our community and they care about what you're doing for it. So I think that speaks volumes.
Well, and I think that's what matters most. The reason that I've dedicated my life to public service and do the work that I do is because one of the greatest gifts of each day is just showing up. Waking up is a great blessing, but then being able to show up throughout this city to celebrate and honor people who are doing extraordinary things, sometimes very quietly, but also to be there in the city when we experience tragedy and we experience loss. It's the whole spectrum of life experience that, to be able to be a part of that and to build relationships. That's really the essence of community, and we're at our best in Roanoke when we remember that we're a community, a very diverse and beautiful community.
And I love that you mentioned public service. Again, in our Best of Roanoke Awards, I interviewed Chris Perkins, COO at Roanoke City Public Schools, and he specifically mentioned public service and how important that is, not only to him, but to the community and why it's so important. So the people who are, like you said, not just leaders in our community, paving paths, but the people who are quietly working in the background to ensure that it's a smooth process. I think that's important too.
Yeah, and public service is not to be taken for granted. I think most people who really invest themselves in public service do so because they feel a call to that work, and they're also very humble. So the work they're doing is not about them, not about me. It's about making the place that we live better.
And I might be biased, but to me that is a signal of a wonderful leader, of a leader that you're proud to stand behind. And so in thinking about, these readers who wanted to celebrate your new role as mayor, what do you think it is about your work that resonates with citizens?
I think it's the way that I seek to be present in the community.
You're everywhere.
Well,
truly.
In addition to being everywhere, it's being present. Whether I'm there for a short time or a longer period of time, I really like to connect with people. I like to hear their stories. I like to hear what they're experiencing, what they're going through, what they're celebrating, what they're angry about. But in the long run, to help them realize that, local government and everyday citizen in the city of Roanoke are connected. We're all doing the same work. We just have different roles. And if we can remember that we each have a part to play, that we each can make a valuable contribution, and finding that thread that really bonds us together or ties us together, that makes us all better in the long term.
I love that. It does speak to the people behind the scenes who are quiet and humble about the work. They don't need a spotlight or want the spotlight even, but that doesn't make their work any less important, to the overall project. Yes, that's fantastic. And thinking about a community, which we've talked about a couple minutes already, but how has that support from the community shaped your own approach to leadership? I mean, you've really had to evolve just in your own way from start to finish, or not even finish. You're barely halfway through.
Well, it reminds me how important it is to listen, not only to those who I'm directly hearing from, but those who I'm not hearing from, kind of the voices around the edges, people who typically don't feel as empowered or maybe feel more marginalized, and that maybe their story doesn't have as much value as someone else's story. And I try and break through those barriers and help people know that whatever your story is, it's important, because your life is important, your experience is important, and you have something to bring. And so one of my favorite things to be able to do is to take somebody who maybe starts with a venting session, or is angry about something, or complaining about something, to help transform that experience into them realizing, I can make a difference. So what's the part I can play? Because none of us wants to be stuck in just always being mad about everything, or frustrated by everything. But and I find that when that shifts is when someone finally feels like they've been heard, and that what they have to say is acknowledged and it's valued. And it's not only important that I do that, but I think that we all, especially in the times that we're living in, that we all take a moment to think about how we listen to each other, how we make sure we're not talking over somebody, because we have so much to say,
right? But
how we're really, as someone once said, let the person finish their sentence. Let them get to the end of their sentence without cutting off their story, because you may miss the best part.
True. Well, as a storyteller, I love that. I think that that's absolutely true. And it does speak to, if you and I are having a conversation, but you're too busy thinking about how to reply to my question or feedback, that makes it difficult.
Yeah,
so
I might be missing the essence of what you're trying to tell me.
So really being mayor is sort of part therapist.
in a way.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. You've been deeply involved in public service for a long time. You're stepping into this role of mayor. What has that transition been like for you so far? And again, so we're talking in late, mid to late March. So I know that by the time this comes out, some things may have already evolved. But what has that been like for you to step into this new role?
Well, being a member of council and then vice mayor twice, I've certainly got a glimpse of what it is to be mayor. I will always be grateful for Mayor Sherman Lee and his role as a mentor in my life, and just watching him lead meetings, interact with people, has been very beneficial to me. I think you never fully know a position that you strive for and the reality of that position until you're actually in it.
Makes sense.
So as much as I knew peripherally that it would be very challenging, very much full-time, very engaged in the community, I had no idea until it started happening. So the first couple of days after I was elected, it was very quiet. Kind of oddly quiet. I thought,
this can't be
it's clearly not going to be this. And then, like day 3, it just like the heavens opened. And it's people calling, it's people emailing or messaging, or every time I'm out anywhere, there's no distinguishing of roles. It's, oh, there's Joe. I need to tell him something before I forget.
So you can't even go into the grocery store without a citizen coming to ask you some questions?
Not really, but I don't.
They see the bow tie and make a direct beeline for you?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. So, on occasion I might have to say, I want to talk to you about this, but let's find a time to do that so that we can really talk about it.
That's interesting.
And not just in passing.
Yeah, like how do you buy your groceries, if someone's trying to talk to you about a very serious matter? It's you are one person, but you have a separate role in your life when you're you in your downtime, what little you do have.
So I really try and find ways to honor the interaction, but then especially if I feel like there's additional time needed to set up a different time to have that conversation.
Well, that's fantastic. And of course, you have many employees who are working with you now, and I'd love to hear sort of some of your feedback or maybe your thanks. I mean, you are in your position now because of the people that have surrounded you to help you with things.
Well, so many people just stepped up and said, we believe in you, we want to work with you, we want to support you. I can't express enough my gratitude for them, because for many folks it's just something they wanted to do in their spare time. So, running an election, running a campaign is really a full-time experience, and it's bringing in people who want to be a part of that experience. And then governing, being in this particular role, just the daily interactions I have with city employees, being able to thank them for the work they do, getting a glimpse into the extra hours they spend. We're in budget season right now, and the extra hours that our finance department, our city manager, our budget and management have put into this process is extraordinary.
That we'll never hear or know about on paper.
We don't hear those stories. We just tend to focus on the end result. And so, I want to make sure that the public knows that our city employees are just superb, and we're always seeking to be better. But the approach we take is that when we don't get something quite right, we learn from that and we make it better the next time. And that's how we function as human beings, to be our best.
Right.
So.
That's such a good point that you've made, that, the result is what we see and not necessarily behind the scenes. Again, those people who are working kind of in the background. Because obviously, I imagine one of the challenges that you face is some of the feedback you might hear, particularly on social media, online. And some people don't want to understand or just don't understand the work that goes into it before you get to that result. And so that sometimes I imagine that's quite a challenge.
Well, true confessions, I never read the comments.
Oh, that's such a good, I respect that so much.
I learned a long time ago that, people can pick and choose as social media warriors what they say about people.
Right.
But I believe if people truly take the time to get to know me, and how I try and move in this world, that they may want to rethink what they say about me. I don't use social media to demean other people, to attack other people, or to denigrate them in any way. we all have our own challenges. We all have our own lives, and I can never assume to know the fullness of someone else's story and why they make the decision they make, or what's going on in their life. So I try and start from that place of respect and honor, and really let that guide my interactions with people. And sometimes I get tired and frustrated, and but we all do.
Right.
But I have found that starting with that, even when I'm tired, helps me pause, take a breath, and say, okay.
Well, I love that approach.
This isn't about me. This isn't about you. This is about something that you're experiencing or I'm experiencing. And we're in this moment, so let's take a breath and see if we can restart it.
Yeah. And I love when you do use social media, the way that a lot of people wake up, your friends, they wake up and see a prayer from you, a shared thought, a hope for the day or the week or and so I really think that helps show who you are as a person. It shows how you're going to operate as a leader, and that you're not looking to denigrate or, bring down any one person or organization, that you're here to help, that you're here to build people up and not bring them down.
Yeah, and that's something I learned from my parents. In 2016, when I actually started A Prayer for Today, it was a really dark time in the world, and I'd like to say we've advanced, but it's a way that I start my day. I find that starting my day that way really helps put me on the right path.
Sure.
And I can keep coming back to it like a mantra of sorts.
Well, I run in some of the circles, and I know that it affects people in a positive way, and it makes them feel like you're thinking about them, even though you're really kind of jumpstarting your own engine that morning. It's really a way to, kind of broadcast your thought for the day and how to help people. So, and something that's so small, right? Yeah. It's just a quick little, social media post, but I see the people responding to it and how it makes them feel, and it makes them feel like you're going to be there for them. They can call you, right, at any point, or reach out to you, and you will make time for them.
Well, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what I'm writing. It's really
that's important
it's
too.
Really spontaneous, and it might be based on something that I've heard or experienced, but oftentimes it's just like what comes into my mind, put it out there.
Well,
so I don't plan out 365 days in advance.
You have a calendar, reading off that.
That's not in my skill set.
But I love that authenticity, right? It's another piece of the puzzle of Joe Cobb and what makes you so genuine. So let's talk about, again, the first few months you've kind of stepped into this role, maybe some surprising or exciting parts of the job that you didn't necessarily expect.
Yeah, so we just came off my first Mayor's Business Summit. The turnout was phenomenal.
That's right, and that's for helping small businesses right here in our community.
Yeah, from startup to development, and we had close to 120 people come, which superseded all of our goals.
Yeah.
Angela Vernon in the city manager's office, she did a great job organizing everything. And just the energy the whole day was fantastic. And it was, I love to be proactive. And I understand that sometimes I have to be reactive to things. But the more proactive I can be, the more we're thinking about what do we do together that strengthens the fabric of our community, whether it's small businesses or nonprofits or restaurants or neighborhoods or big projects we're trying to do in the city. How do those benefit everybody, even though you might not live directly near them? So that's a really big thing. Seeing a lot of the big innovative projects that are underway. To me, just carrying forward that momentum is really exciting. I think one of the big roles of a mayor is to be the champion for the city, and I love doing that.
That's the perfect description.
So much to celebrate, and even when we have pretty intense challenges, we still take on those challenges collaboratively, because it can't be just one of us.
Right.
Or one group of people in the city to address something.
Right. You're not the only people looking at a budget. Yeah. Well, and I loved your line about you want to be proactive rather than reactive, because, there's always something going on, right? And I love that you sort of, maybe you don't necessarily have to pull this card, but you always have plan B or plan C or some sort of outline of what you think should happen should something occur. So I think that's really important. How about surprising? Is anything kind of, again, you were in this role as city council and vice mayor, so you've seen, again, the peripheral edges of mayorship, but has there been anything that you've really thought, wow, I didn't expect that?
I think one of the things that's been surprising but also just really delightful is people coming up to me and congratulating me or thanking me for the work that I do. I don't do any of this to be thanked. I do it because I care and I love this city. But when people take a moment out of their day to do that, it's really special. I've also loved that just countless people who don't live in the city of Roanoke have come up to me and said, "We are so glad you won mayor. We can't vote for you. We live in the county, or we live, And I say, well, you're always welcome to move into the city.
We encourage you to come on down. Well, that's so interesting, though, because I was just thinking about that during one of your last answers in terms of, you don't run Roanoke County or Salem, but the ripple effect of what happens in the city does affect them to some degree. So you do have sort of a say in how things occur in their communities.
Well, and I have a really good working relationship with Roanoke County Board of Supervisors, with the Salem City Council, with really all the localities, because anything that happens that's good for our region benefits every part of the region.
We're very tight-knit across the board, not just in Roanoke City. And we really work in tandem with many. Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge. It's 5 regions, it's not just Roanoke City. So that's important. So as we're looking ahead to the rest of 2025, do you mind sharing maybe some of your top priorities as mayor that, not top secret, but coming down the road that you really think are great goals to look for?
3 really come to mind, and they're big picture things.
Sure.
But one is economy. I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of growth economically right now, but where we're still wanting to emerge is in terms of manufacturing and industry, attracting companies with higher paying jobs. I would really love to see our average median income rise significantly in the city. It's much higher outside of the city. I think the more we do that, the more it benefits our city as a whole. The Research Institute, all of the biotech, biomed work, the innovation work is really making a profound difference. So keeping our focus on economy and how to grow that. Secondly, I would say has to do with increasing our housing inventory. The more we increase our housing inventory across the board, so we have a spectrum of housing and a range of affordability. That attracts the professional who's coming here to do research, that wants to have a home in Roanoke. It attracts the senior who wants to have a 1-level or a 2-level, smaller home because they're downsizing. It attracts the lower income person who wants to move from homelessness to permanent housing, or that missing middle that has really struggled to find a place. But it also, for people who want to own a home, it creates more of a pathway for them to do so. And in the long term, it reduces homelessness, which is ultimately one of the goals we have in the city.
That's one of the things we talked about in June 23 of our conversation that we had. So obviously that specific issue is ongoing. That's not something that's solved overnight, but clearly you're making strides to try and fix that.
And then the third is safety, public safety. And we've made and will continue to make big investments in compensation for our public safety. The work they do is high stress. But I will tell you, high dedication. We have extraordinary people in our police department, our fire EMS, our E911, sheriff's department. We want to keep them.
Yes, that is not an easy job.
It is not easy. We've seen significant reductions in gun violence. We've got to sustain that. One of my goals is to see our numbers related to gun violence, which are predominantly in Northwest Roanoke, reduced by half year over year. That's going to take a lot of work. I want to see us reduce, through our harm reduction efforts, substance use disorder, really getting more people into recovery, getting people clean, and making sure they have the resources they need to do so. And then, another part of that is just paying attention to mental health. We've seen a significant increase in people with mental health diagnoses, mental health struggles, and we want to make sure that not only we have enough providers, that they're being paid appropriately and don't have to go through so many of the hassles with insurance, but that people who need access to mental health care are getting it over a longer period of time.
These are such important issues, and also they're not easily solved. I mean, there's a lot of voices that have to be heard. There's a lot of team members that have to be brought in for all of these different committees and conversations. And so how do you juggle all of that? I mean, because a lot of the things that you're talking about, the economy, the housing, the safety, those are also national issues that many mayors, all mayors are kind of facing, these issues across the board. So how do you juggle so many things and committees and people who are interested and invested or angry in some cases? That's a lot on a plate.
One of my strengths is convening people, bringing people together to not only discuss these kinds of issues, but to bring their expertise, to bring their wisdom, and then to create action steps that we can take. Because, that's proactive, so that we're seeing fewer and fewer incidents, but we're seeing increased health in the community. So it's bringing people together to look at that, empowering them. I think the more citizens feel empowered to feel like they're a part of addressing these issues, the less likely we are to complain or vent.
They're committed to that, yeah.
Yeah, because we're looking at them differently. Instead of saying, I realize this is a complex issue, suddenly we realize why it's complex, what these root causes are. That you can't just leap to the conclusion that this person is homeless because A, B, or C.
Right.
It could be any number of things, or that this person is needing addiction treatment or to move into recovery. Why can't they just get there?
Right.
Well, it's because of this and this and this. So I like to bring people together to better understand the complexities of issues, engage them in finding ways to address those complexities, and to do so in a way that they not only feel like they're a part of the process, but they can see the results as well.
So in thinking about describing your vision for Roanoke in one sentence, that's really hard, but what might it be?
So it's actually pretty easy.
Is it? Okay, all right.
Together, we make Roanoke shine. And I'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, please do.
So the together is obvious. We all have a part to play. Roanoke is our home. We're in Roanoke for a reason. Some of us were born here and grew up here, maybe left, have come back. But every day I hear stories of people that have arrived in Roanoke for so many different reasons, from just doing substantial research on everything they want, and Roanoke, checks all the boxes, to we want to locate somewhere between Florida and New York. Okay, Roanoke sounds good.
Pretty good stop, yeah.
But I also think about our star.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to assume, but felt built in.
But the star, it's a beacon, and everybody thinks of us as the Star City. But when we shine that star on places of struggle, then we're shining light on those places. And that light reveals the challenges, but it also reveals the opportunities. So anytime there's a problem, I think about how can we shine a light on that problem. And by working together to address that problem, the shine of Roanoke becomes even brighter.
I love that. I mean, you're shining a light on the problem, but the solution as well, an active, goal to reach. And I was just thinking, you're talking about all of these different voices that you have to hear. And I would like to kind of assume that some of your background, your spiritual background, as it were, helps in those voices that don't always agree with each other. Yeah. Because like you said, if you are assuming something about a person and you have a voice that disagrees, it's very difficult for those two people or those two persons to find a middle ground. And so with your background, I feel that I don't know, it's just in your nature to find some sort of medium so that there's some understanding of maybe not why things have happened the way they are, but a solution to that problem.
Yeah. Well, and if someone comes to me and they're conflicted about something and it involves somebody else, you know, I'm not a triangulator. I don't get engaged in triangulation, which is the worst way to create conflict. But I really seek to bring the people together who are having the conflict and talk through it. And what I find way more often than not is that it's usually something very small that became big because people didn't bother to talk with each other and listen with each other. So when we can come together and talk through something, usually we can all arrive at a place where we have agreement. And even if we don't reach a place of agreement, we achieve a better respect for each other because we took the time to meet together.
Which is a critical first step towards maybe, you know, agreeing on something eventually. You know, and I think about people who may hear a story on the news that they weren't aware of necessarily, but they hear it on the news and suddenly they want to know more about it and they want to be involved, or they want to make that an issue, or they want to be angry about it sometimes without knowing all the background work that led to this point. So I think, you know, certainly you have a challenge, but I hope you find that challenge rewarding too. It seems to be something that you're eager to do, and that you embrace doing rather than shying away from it.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. So again, you know, we talked about everything that you're talking about. Before I stepped in, we talked quickly about your family. And so real quick, when you have downtime, when you aren't being approached in the grocery store by citizens, where are you and your family eating, playing, going in our region? You're everywhere. So this might be a really hard answer for you because literally every time, you know, I'm seeing you at the market and, you know, downtown. And I mean, you're at everything.
Yeah. Well, and I do love this place. There are so many wonderful options here. Of course, I'm a big coffee fan, so I have this rotation of all the coffee shops in Roanoke that I go to. And now because there are just more and more and more, I'm having to really expand maybe to once or twice a day.
So Mayor Cobb's well caffeinated.
I love the, you know, the restaurants here. Whatever you want, it's here. And if it's not here, it's going to be here soon.
Right.
Now, at home, you know, 3 of my family really like hot, spicy food, and I do not. So I get chided for that.
I'm with
times. You. And they try and test me out by telling me, "Oh, it's not as hot as you might think it is."
Devious.
And then as my face is burning, I say, "Okay, you just wait."
You moody teenagers, I'm going to get you back. Oh, that's so funny. I'm with you. I like a little bit of spice, but I don't need it to like turn me bright red. Well, thank you. And would there be anything else you'd like to say to listeners and readers, whether it's about your Best of Roanoke Award or just in general as far as being mayor now?
Well, I want to thank Roanoker magazine for being so creative in the way that you engage the public.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's fun to think through these topics. Whether it's the best of Roanoke or best healthcare or whatever the topic is, when I participate in these things, I have to really think, you know, how much do I know about these topics?
Right.
And so I find myself doing a little bit of research because I realize, you know, at some point, somebody's going to ask me about this, and it might be good to know who to recommend.
I hope you learn something new every time, because.
I do. And I love the 40 under 40
Thank
and
you.
the 20 over 50 and what, 18 under 18.
Yeah, we got it all.
I mean, but
we got every age group you can think of.
It's a fun, creative way to really engage people in the process and to share their stories and people they care about. I love this city. It's home. I'm honored to be the mayor of the city, and please know that I'm here to work with you, and we're here to work with each other to make our city the best it can be.
And what's that tagline you want to share again?
Together, we make Roanoke shine.
I love it. Let's put it everywhere. Fantastic. Thank you for such a wonderful conversation. Appreciate you, Mr. Mayor Joe Cobb, for joining us and sharing your vision for Roanoke. Again, congratulations on your Best of Awards, Star City Hero of the Year. I mean, that's just... I'm very proud to call you a friend and my mayor, so fantastic. Of course, a big thank you again to listeners for tuning in. If you'd like to read more about Mayor Cobb's Best of Roanoke wins, you can learn more in our latest issue on newsstands now or visit us at theroanoker.com.